A few years ago, I debated Jim Grant, who called me an apostate amongst value managers for hedging about this time is different. I maintain that the foremost dangerous words, this time is different, should be replaced by the five most dangerous words, which is this time is never different. That is a very dangerous idea, to think that you can never have important permanent changes. And I think almost everything has changed since 2000. So the certainties that we used to have no longer exist. But that was 5 years ago. That was before the most massive move against value. On any way you care to measure it now, we're off the scale. So I don't think a value is as dependable and useful a weapon as it was for 70 years prior to 2000. But I think it's a very handy weapon when you push the parameters so far that it hits historical lows against growth stocks. So we may not snap back the 120% I would have calculated 20 years ago, but we are going to have a very big reversal in favor of value stocks sooner or later. I think we can be pretty safe about that. And one of the things comes down to the nature of the FANGs. The FANGs are a very interesting subset and well worth anyone studying because they're unique in many ways. There's been the occasional company in the past that looked a little fangy, but there's never been a whole clutch of 8 or 9 in the US and 2 or 3 in China that become the biggest companies in the world. They snatch asset value out of thin air. They generate earnings on almost no asset value. They're all about intellectual capital. They are unbelievably disruptive and they move very fast. So these are very special companies and they're worth a lot of money, but they have also been bid up, and eventually even the best companies can become overpriced. I don't recommend necessarily going short of the FANGs, but I do recommend owning as few US equities as you can face. It's important to separate monetary from fiscal spending and FDR type broad-based planning of that kind. I'm a great believer in that. I'm much more suspicious of credit and interest rates. Let me just point out that we entered an era with Greenspan of a fairly decent kink in the cumulative debt curve. It had been drifting up very slowly and then it started to rise very rapidly since his era. What you notice is that despite the fact that the debt ratio per unit of GDP has doubled and tripled and will soon quadruple since the first day of Greenspan, the growth rate of the US and the developed world has slowed. So if there was some easy relationship between debt and growth, it should have showed up. And in fact, the reverse has occurred. And that's one of the reasons I'm suspicious. As to the point when the market gets jumpy, very hard to read. If you go back to the earlier bubbles and you look at 1929, there was no great event. People have studied that now for 90 years, and we still haven't found the reason. The best we can come up with is, quote, selling came in from the country, unquote, which means it wasn't New York and Boston and the financial centers. It was the industrial centers of the Midwest. And they were the people who were seeing that the economy was weakening. And they looked at the high prices and the optimism that was everywhere and decided they would take some profits. And that was what turned the tide. And then more people decided they would take profits and it spiraled out of control. It was not done by a massive change in the Federal Reserve policy or any government spending program. So that's what you have to be wary about, that in the end, high PEs are an intrinsically nervous and risky situation where everything is confidence. If you break confidence for any reason, it could be uniquely different this time. It has been quite different in each of the bubbles. But if you break confidence and you're way overpriced, you're looking at some very substantial declines. If you take a forest in New England, and I'm a great fan of forestry, and you back up 10 years, 12 years, you could get 6% return. And then you push up the asset prices across the board, and you come back 12 years later today, and the same forest will give you a 3% return. The same with the Midwestern farm. It's gone from 6% to 3%. Now, that's been a wonderful ride in capital gains, but the price you pay is you don't make 6% a year compounded, which is very handy, you make 3. And yes, if it goes up even higher, you'll make another capital gain. But the cost of that will be that the yield on the forest will go to 2. you get my point. So the price of staying high multiples is you get a low dividend, whether it's a farm or whether it's stock. And that's what you see. So in the interim, you have this trade-off between lower yields on one side and capital gains on the other until it peaks out. And then you're left with lower yields and declining prices in the way we've experienced cycle after cycle since time immemorial.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.